Here, kids, we debut the If the Season Ended Today bracket. Here's what we'd have in the Big Ten tourney. Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan State. We get the double byes. The set matchups for Thursday would be Indiana against Iowa and Michigan against Northwestern. Minnesota, Maryland, Nebraska, Penn State playing on opening night. Remember, the first 10 games of the tourney here on the Big Ten Network. Andy, those...
I have a question.
Yes. I hope I have an answer.
Yes,
because if I don't, it will be awkward. Yeah.
Here's what I would say. On that list that we just saw,
Yes.
I think there's only going to be one major change.
Okay.
I think Ohio State
This
will
This doesn't feel like a question. This feels like a statement.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's true. Ohio State will replace Michigan State. That's my statement.
With a double bye.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get through some of that stuff.
I know.
Because we're going to talk about both of those teams. It's we're going to call it Make the Case.
Okay.
Make the case for ... In terms of winning the Big Ten, and if you look at this race, you have 6 teams within 2 games of one another in the loss column. So we're going to go through each one of the 6 teams, and we'll make the case for how they can win it or whether they can win it. Let's start with the first place team in Illinois.
All right, well, obviously the qualifier here is the Illini have to be healthy. That's been the problem for them all season long. So we don't know from game to game who's available, it seems. But, clearly they have, I would say, we'll get to Purdue, but I think those are the 2 teams that have the best chance.
Right.
And I would say Illinois is probably playing the most consistent of the top 6 teams. But we have to go to their schedule, because there are landmines everywhere here in the Big Ten for everyone. Beginning tomorrow night, you've got a hungry Rutgers team at the rack. That's going to be an incredibly difficult game for the Illini. And then, look what they have all in a row there. At Michigan State, home Ohio State, they're playing great. And then probably a desperate Michigan team on the road. And Hunter Dickinson's going to be just anxious for that one to go against Kofi again. So we're going to know a lot more about the Illini in the next 4 games.
Right.
If they were to go 3-1, they're going to win the league, I think. 2-2, it's going to be up for grabs. But I think everything's going to be determined in these next 4.
3 tough road games.
Yes.
For sure. Remember, they would win the tiebreaker with Purdue. Lose tiebreaker with Purdue, given that they lost them twice. So Purdue has had a bit of an uninspiring week, but they are the most efficient offense in the country. As we said, they have 2 wins over Illinois, so they have that in hand against the Illini. I think we all agree those are the 2 best teams right now in the Big Ten. Make the case for Purdue. Okay,
first of all, I applaud the Big Ten versus other leagues around the country. The Big Ten did everything it could to reschedule every game. 140 games are all going to be played. That's great for the networks, for the league, everything. But it has made Purdue tired. I think there's no question about what they have gone through. We see it. They are tired.
Agreed.
Okay? Because there's no business that Maryland game should have come down to the last possession, and they looked exhausted against Michigan. That being said, they have the, quote, and this is a relative term, easier schedule in comparison to Illinois.
Compared to Illinois, yeah.
Relative.
Agreed. At Michigan State, at Wisconsin's no picnic.
Correct, but I think they match up well against both teams.
Yeah.
And they got the revenge factor against the Badgers. So I like their chances. I like their chances on the road against Northwestern, and then their 2 home games, Rutgers and Indiana, certainly that last one against Indiana. So I favor Purdue with their schedule, and especially because they finally have at least a couple days here before Northwestern on Wednesday, because they've been spent.
Although, as you know, Badgers did beat them at Mackey. They're the only team to beat them at Mackey.
Correct, but I think a little revenge factor here.
Okay.
And Purdue's going to know that they're going to, what they did in the past.
What about Wisconsin? You look at schedules. This is a manageable schedule. I mean, to me, this is, of this kind of elite group, this might be the most manageable.
Yes, but then they lost to Rutgers. So, it's hard to predict.
Yeah.
Tonight, you got a desperate Indiana team. What if they lose that? Like Purdue at home, I think it's going to be an incredibly difficult game for them. And then at Rutgers. Rutgers could get the sweep.
Oh, no doubt.
At Minnesota, home Nebraska, for sure. Those are 2 games that maybe they should win for sure. And home Michigan, I like their chances. So that's 3. But I can easily see them going 3-3, and 3-3 is not going to get them the league title.
No, I think this is a huge one tonight. I don't think you can overstate the importance of this one. They go into Indiana and win. then all of a sudden, to me, it
Yes.
becomes a lot more manageable. I feel like this is one of those games that.
But you could see them going 3-3.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, going to Rutgers, like, hello. I
Yes.
mean, you know, after what we saw over the weekend. We talked about Michigan State. They are right there record-wise. It seems like you don't think they're consistent enough to pull this out, though.
No. I think right now, you know, realistic goals, fight for the double bye. Obviously, they're going to try to win the championship. I know that. But I think that's a more realistic goal for this Spartan team. Try to not have to play until Friday.
And their schedule, frankly, is brutal. I mean, they have a stretch of 5 games. I mean, Illinois, at Iowa, home against Purdue, at Michigan, at Ohio State. That is really challenging. In fact, Bart Torvik has them as the second most difficult remaining schedule in the Big Ten, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, so you bookend at Penn State, not going to be easy tonight, and home Maryland. And look, Maryland almost just went in to beat Purdue.
Right.
But you're right, that middle group of 5, incredibly difficult. Maybe one of the more difficult schedules of any team from a Power 6 league.
Ohio State, to me, is really interesting because all the reschedules have put them in a situation where they have a really unusual grouping of games. So they are starting a 3-game homestand here tonight, and then they have another 3-game homestand at the end. So they've got 8 games left. They have 6 of them at home. They have yet to lose a home game this year. This is the easiest remaining schedule in the league, according to Torvik.
Yes, so this is a great example where the Big Ten said, we want to finish this schedule, because they easily could have said, you know what, we don't need to play that Nebraska game. We don't have to play the rescheduled Iowa game. Well, obviously they wanted to put it on Fox and the Big Ten Network, and that's great. So, but what that did was that gave them, as you can see, there are 8 remaining games in the final 3 weeks. But it is manageable. They're playing well. They're probably about as healthy as they're going to be right now. And so I feel pretty good about Ohio State for that reason, getting the double bye.
I do wonder about the fatigue factors. I agree with you 100% on Purdue, right? Purdue looked gas. I mean, it's amazing that they had kind of the reservoir to come back from 12 down to beat Maryland over the weekend. And
I would
Ohio
say
State's schedule is every bit as challenging in terms of these back-to-back, one day off. I mean, it's brutal.
I want to credit Michigan because they played great. No,
Yes.
That was their best game of the year.
Yeah.
But there's no way that deficit would normally be the case if they had not just played 48 hours earlier.
Fair enough. I want to talk about Rutgers, too, because as we said, they're just 2 back in the loss column. I mean, I understand the conversation about Rutgers is, are they going to get into the NCAA tournament? And their schedule is really challenging. However, I mean, they're still mathematically in this conversation, Andy.
Well, they've won 3 straight games against all Quad 1. And look at their schedule of what they have continuing here. Home Illinois. Can you imagine if they get that one, which they really could? And then at Purdue, at Michigan, home Wisconsin, at Indiana, Penn State. I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm viewing, to me, the only game that would definitely say, okay, that's an L, would be at Purdue. I don't think they're going to win all these games, but they could. They have the talent to win 5 of those final 6. Will they get 4? Will they get 3? Possibly. I think I told you, I think they're going to be in. And I don't think they're going to be in the first 4.
Making the tourney obviously seems like kind of the more realistic goal for them than winning the Big Ten. I mean, you look at those games, there's 6 games left, 5 of them are Quad 1 games. But again, we're talking about a team that's won 3 straight games against ranked teams. And
Look, we keep
there's no
bringing
one
up,
they can't beat, right? They beat Purdue.
I know. Last thing I'll say real quick, had they won those early games against, we're going to say them again, Lafayette and UMass, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? It wouldn't even exist, this conversation.
What a performance by Rutgers on Saturday, going into Madison, a place where they had never won, and taking down the 14th-ranked Badgers 73-65, the highest-ranked team they've beaten on the road since 2008. The Scarlet Knights improved to 4-1 against ranked teams this season, hit 51% from the floor. That's just the latest game in an amazing run for Rutgers. 3 straight wins over ranked teams for the first time in school history. They are the first unranked Big Ten team to pull that off in the last 20 years. We'll look to make it 4 in a row tomorrow night when Illinois visits Jersey Mike's Arena, a game you can see right here on the Big Ten Network. The leading scorer of that Rutgers team is Ron Harper Jr. He joins us now for our big interview. And Ron, let's focus in on this last week and a half or so for you guys. I mean, you certainly had shown signs this year that you could win games like this. The Purdue game, when they were number one, being the most obvious example. But this is a team that had been inconsistent. So what has been different here over these last 3 games where you've gone from inconsistent to consistently really good?
You know, me and these guys, we just really keep fighting, and we're trying to have a special season. We're trying to have a special year. And like you said, we've been inconsistent, but we've kind of found that extra gear late in the season when it really matters. So I've sensed a different team. We were preparing differently. We're preparing really well. And we're going out there and we're really executing the game plan and trusting the coaches. And they're putting us in a position to win. And we just got to go out there and play our games.
When do you say preparing differently? How so?
Just everybody's really locked in. This is kind of the home stretch of the season. And we're not too far out of first place, so that's still a goal for us to go to win the Big Ten. But we're kind of taking it a one game at a time approach. Everybody's talking about March Madness and all the postseason stuff, but we're kind of just worried about playing Illinois tomorrow night, and then we'll worry about the rest after that.
When I think about what's been different for this team, I had the call. I was doing the play-by-play of the game against Northwestern, and Paul Mulcahy in the second half was unbelievable, and since then has just been absolutely remarkable. So I would point towards Mulcahy's improvement, and I thought the deal you did with the Big Ten Player of the Week thing with Paul Mulcahy absolutely cracked me up, where you said if he wasn't Big Ten Player of the Week that you were going to break your phone, and then Kofi Coburn was named the Big Ten Player of the Week, and then you tweeted out your search for Apple stores near you. Is the phone actually intact, Ron?
Oh, yeah, it's intact, but I had to go to Apple. I had to get myself a new case. You know, I'm a man of my word, so I did try to break my phone. But, you know, my boy got robbed, I feel like, and he should have been Big Ten Player of the Week. And like you said, just I'm being able to watch him grow firsthand, you know, in practice and games in the film room. And we all knew Paul had it in him. I feel like that Northwestern game gave him a great deal of confidence. And I know the Big Ten Player of the Week stuff doesn't matter to him, but it's just great to see him catching his groove out there when we really need it and at the right time. And he's such a great player, and he's just going to continue to grow and get better.
I think we've seen signs that he could be this guy, certainly very heavily recruited, as you are well aware. But what happened? Like, how does a guy go from occasional bursts of being really good to being the best guy on the floor for a team?
I feel like that Northwestern game really did justice for him. I feel like you really need that one game where you just really play well and your teammates and coaches are kind of just force feeding you the ball in a sense. And we did that with him in Northwestern. He had 31 points, career high on the road. And we came back and almost won a game where we were down by 20-plus points. So I just feel like his confidence is at a career high, and that he's showing up to practice to the games with a kind of newfound swagger. So just being out there and knowing that we have faith in him and trusting him, and he knows what he can do. So that's just a good combination to get a guy going, and especially when it matters.
You mentioned trying to make it to the NCAA tournament, and yet, hey, you're focused on one game at a time. But in this world, right, it's impossible to avoid that stuff. I mean, you've got a phone. Obviously, you haven't broken it, so you have a phone. You see all this stuff. You see that every bracketologist out there right now still has you guys on the outside looking in. How much do you think about that? Like, how much does it weigh on you? We got to make the tournament. What do we need to do to make the tournament?
I don't really try to let it have too much of an effect on me. Like I said, I show up to practice every day, show up to film and all that, just try to take it one day at a time, just try to get 1% better every day. You know, the beauty and the struggle is that we control our own destiny, and that where we are in March is going to determine on how well we play over this next coming stretch. And me and the guys know that. We show up to practice every day, and we're really determined, and we're really looking forward to the next game, the next opportunity. And we got Illinois at home, a top 25 team again, looking to make it 4 straight. And they kind of handled us at their place early in the year, so that's something that we definitely remember.
To what extent do those games from early in the year, and I talk about the tough losses that you guys had that are kind of weighing on you a little bit, to what extent are those things that you replay in your mind and say, man, how did we let that happen?
I feel like those games are really defining this team, and I feel like if maybe they didn't happen or they played out differently, maybe this season would have gone differently for us, better or worse. So those games in the beginning of the season, we know that we let some slip away that we probably shouldn't have, but, you know, there's nothing we can do about it now. And every time we step on the court, there's a brand new opportunity right in front of us. So me and the guys just try to leave the past in the past and worry about the future, because, you know, we can't do anything about those games. We can only you can only make them look not as bad when we're playing on the court, especially tomorrow.
When you talk about seizing opportunities, you certainly seized one when Purdue came to town, and your shot to beat Purdue, I think, will go down as one of the great moments in college basketball this year, and really one of the more memorable ones that I can think of in recent years. What will you think about in 10 years when you think about that shot?
That shot, it was just magical, that whole night, the experience, the whole game. Me and the guys went into the game and we were like, we don't have anything to lose. We got the #1 team coming into our house. We can go out there, play freely, play with no pressure, and that's probably the best we played all season. And we had to do that without senior captain Geo Baker. So it was one of the more challenging games, but just how the night unfolded, how it all went down, it's just magical, and it's just an experience that I'm grateful to be able to share with my teammates, my coaches, and the fan base.
Your home court environment at Jersey Mike's Arena is so amazing, and of course we saw it front and center in that game. But to what extent does that fuel you guys?
It fuels us so much. The home court advantage is real. Last game against Ohio State, there's a shot clock violation. I forget where we were in the game, but it was in the second half, and I didn't even know the shot clock went off. I was still playing, I was still defending, but it was just so loud in there that I had no idea where the shot clock was at. I had no idea it hit 0 until the ref started blowing the whistle and stopping the game. But that kind of what defines Jersey Mike's Arena. Ever since I've been here, it's been a great environment for college basketball, and the fans, they keep showing up no matter what. We appreciate them because they make it one of the hardest places to play in basketball.
Anyone who follows basketball knows about your dad. 15 years in the NBA, won 5 championship rings, few of them here in Chicago where we are based, so I had a chance to watch him and root for him. Frankly, really a great player. What piece of advice has he given you that has resonated with you in your basketball journey?
A piece of advice he's given me is one day at a time. He always tells me just to go day by day, never look too far into the future, never dwell on the past. So that's kind of a mindset that I've carried into this season and telling these guys, and that's definitely the best piece of advice that he's given me. He's a 5-time champion, so he's been there before. He's been through the rough patches. He's been to the promised land, so he knows what he's talking about. But that's definitely the greatest piece of advice he's ever given me.
Is it a burden to carry that name? Would it be easier if you were Joe Harper and not everyone knew the moment you stepped out on the court that you were Ron Harper's kid?
It could be a burden sometimes, but it also comes with a lot of great assets, just like he's been there. He's been in my shoes. He knows what I want to do with my life and playing basketball. So it's always great to have that advice, but it probably would be easier going out there, like you said, with a name like Joe Harper. Nobody know my dad is Ron Harper, but I kind of embrace it, It's hard sometimes, but it's great in other times. So it's a burden sometimes, like I tell him, but I got to deal with it. And it's my name, and I'm proud of it. And I just want to keep going and keep making him proud.
I don't want to sell your mom short in all this, right? Your mom, Maria, was a player herself at the University of New Orleans, and I know she coached you a lot, and that it got a little contentious maybe in your middle school years. Give me a sense of her coaching style.
Yeah, she was always tough on me on the court, and when you're a young kid in middle school, it's kind of weird having your mom being a coach out there, and you don't know how to deal with it sometimes. So I remember like my freshman year of high school, I asked her to stop coming to the games because it would put too much pressure on me, my high school games. And I was on like the freshman basketball team. There wasn't really pressure to begin with, but when she was in the crowd, I just felt like her eyes were just like beaming on me the whole game. And I had asked her to stop going. And then she got really upset. We ended up seeing a sports therapist, sports psychologist, and we just talked it out. But she's paid dividends for me. She's made worlds meet with my basketball career. She's raised me to be a great player and a great man. So at the end of the day, I appreciate her. And just because I was a little kid and I didn't understand what she was telling me, now I look back at it and we laugh at it. And, we appreciate the memories that we built together.
That's great. And it's interesting to me, too. I mean, you were kind of an overlooked recruit for a while there. You exploded late in your high school career. But, you come out of your sophomore year, you have 2 letters. You don't even have any offers, right? You have letters from Liberty and Radford, and that's it. How much has that fueled you to become the player you are?
It fueled me a lot. When I step on the court, I look at it as not a lot of people believed in me, but I found the right place. I found the right home. And this coaching staff has believed in me since day one. And it's kind of made me into the player that I am today. And it's always an extra chip on my shoulder. I go out there with a bunch of other guys that were overlooked, over-recruited, and we just go out there and it gives us an extra gear and it makes us play harder. So it kind of has defined who we are as players.
Can't wait to see you in action tomorrow night. Biggest key to beating Illinois?
biggest key to beating Illinois is trying to contain Kofi. Kofi's one of the best players in the conference, so we got to do everything we can to slow him down. And it's not going to be an easy task, but we're up for it. And we're looking forward to seeing the fans, and we're looking forward to getting out there and to compete.
Yeah, that falls in the category of easier said than done. Ron Harper Jr.,
Yes, sir.
Great stuff. Thanks so much. Really a pleasure to visit with you. Brendan Quinn from The Athletic joins us now. He has spent a lot of time chronicling Izzo's career. Andy and I were talking about this earlier, Brendan, certainly very interested in your take. Put this accomplishment for Tom Izzo into perspective.
Well, I really think it speaks to both kind of longevity and not only that, but identity. Michigan State is built in Tom Izzo's image as much as pretty much any program out there could be, I think, identified with a single person or a single ideal. So, when you want to put it in perspective, I mean, you can rank the wins and go through the numbers and basically stack it up anywhere. But to be in this league, to last this long, to, in this day and age, to not be fired, to not wear thin, to be able to, keep certain ideals, but then also adjust in other ways. I think it speaks to a guy who kind of is very principled in what he does, but also is kind of open-minded enough to adjust to the game, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the attributes are, aside from that open-mindedness, that have gotten him to this point?
I think it's his ability to connect with players. I remember one day in his office, and we were talking about I was kind of embedded with him for the day on a game day, and recruits were being cycled through. And the thing that he told me was, the thing that I promise the most to my guys is access to the head coach. So there's not going to be walls. There's not going to be you go through this assistant coach to get to the head coach. There's not going to be, you speak to me when I'm in the office. Like when you're at Michigan State and you're playing for Tom Izzo, you get the full Tom Izzo experience. Some guys might not be ready for it, and it might take a few years to get used to if it happens at all. But I'd say the vast majority, there is a deep connection there. And I was actually reading this morning about his first win at Michigan State. It was over Indiana. It would have been January of '96. And in the story, it talked about Michigan State had lost to CMU, I think, the week before, and that they went through these intense meetings and individual player meetings and assistant coaches meetings. You honestly could have read the same thing this year. And it is just that relentlessness to finding solutions that is really kind of, I feel like, the ID of this program under him.
This team's been a little enigmatic this year. They've lost 4 of 8 coming in, but really played well over the weekend. What do you think the key is here for Michigan State to having a chance to make some sort of a Izzo-esque run?
Yeah, it's, I think, leaning as far into that defensive identity as possible. The offense continues to kind of be this moving target of, some nights, man, Max Christie looks like he can be the guy. Other nights, Gabe Brown hits shots. Other nights, it's the point guard combination. The most consistent has been Malik Hall. So offense still is, has potential, but is all over the place. But as long as defense is something that they are hanging their hat on every game, they'll always have a chance. I don't know what the ceiling of this team is, but when they play defense the way that they are capable of, they can hang with or certainly beat pretty much anyone.
You've covered Michigan quite a bit through the years as well. They were unbelievable last week against Purdue and then kind of came back to earth over the weekend against Ohio State. They are very much a bubble team right now. How do you assess their chances here going forward?
I think chances is the key word. When you look at that schedule that's remaining for Michigan, it's basically playing an NCAA tournament team or a bubble team every game on the way out. So, yes, it's a difficult road, but at the same time, there's Q1 opportunities all over the place. There are resume builders all over the place. If you can get out the door and get to 11 wins in the league, I think they're in because of the quality of those wins. At the same time, the inconsistencies on offense and the defense just kind of still continuing to be a major issue. I think 11th or 12th in the conference. You know, can you consistently do it here on the way out the door is going to be a major challenge. But those chances are there. And if you could beat Purdue in this league, then I think you could beat anybody. But they still have to do it.
Yeah, they just beat him, right? They hammered him. But to your point, look, all but one of their games going forward is a quad one, and the one that's not is against Rutgers. So basically every game is against a quality team, and we'll see how good they are here. Andy and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. Interested in your take because you follow all of college hoops so closely. Who's the best team in the league right now?
I still say Purdue. 2 head-to-head wins against Illinois, and I know that some of the losses aren't exactly the most impressive, but when I go through their top 3, talent-wise, the top 3 players, right? So obviously Ivy, Edey, and Williams. I think that's the best 3-man combination in the league. I think they have the 2 best wins in the league with the wins over Illinois. I know one of them obviously came without Kofi, but the fact remains, it's the number 1 ranked offense in the country, not the league, in the country. So the defense scares me. They're 10th in the conference in efficiency defensively, which makes it feel uncomfortable to say that's the best team in the league, just given what is typically like the winning identity in this conference. But I just have a hard time saying no to Purdue. It's having the highest ceiling, and their schedule on the way out. I think they get to 14, 15 wins, and can Illinois match them is the question.
How about the best player in the league?
It's so hard because the 3 that I wrestle with, Johnny Davis and E.J. Liddell and Kofi Cockburn, are just 3 opposite players. Each in their own category is so elite. So picking one from the 3 is kind of, well, what do you want? Best pro prospect is still Jaden Ivey probably, but going from those 3 right now, maybe it's recency bias because I just watched E.J. Liddell put it on Michigan the other night, but he looked. I haven't seen many guys play as well as he has the times that I've sat and watched him for 40 minutes. So, Liddell, just because I just sat there and watched him and marveled at him is in that conversation. But, man, I also saw Johnny Davis earlier this year, and he can go, man.
He can indeed. It's a pretty cool year to have this kind of elite talent in the league. Brandon, really appreciate your insights as always. It was great. Thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us.
Thanks, Dave.